So cutting shooting lanes might seem like kind of an obvious task. I mean, who doesn't know how to use a saw and pruning shears, right? Well, there's a bit more challenge in knowing when to cut your shooting lanes and exactly how much to cut. Let me share a quick story. Last November, one of my really good hunting buddies up north of Duluth, he was hunting in one of his historically most productive rut stands. And it's a lock-on stand nestled between two tall narrow pines, tons of cover. They shot a lot of great bucks out of it over the years. But he had a 140-inch 10-pointer walk in, and it came in at an awkward angle. He drew his bow back and he just could not get his top limb around a tiny little branch about 2 inches in diameter, and that buck walked away clean. So what did he do? Well, like most people's natural reactions would be, I imagine, he vowed to never let it happen again, went back in there with a saw, cut off that 2-inch diameter limb, and then continued on to clean out just about every limb that he thought might potentially become an issue in the future. And in my opinion, he completely overdid it and ruined much of what made that stand so great. So let's start with timing. What time of year is best to cut shooting lanes? Well, never is a really good answer if you're hunting public land in Wisconsin or Minnesota where it's blatantly illegal. So make sure to check your local laws before going out and cutting lanes. But I like to cut my lanes on my second scouting trip out in the spring after the snow melts. If you remember from my How to Scout video, the first time I go out, I pack light, bring my GPS, cover a lot of miles, mark waypoints. And the second time I go out, I bring my tree stand and I go and try out a lot of those potential tree stand sites. That's when I like to bring my saw. And now this year I got a extendable saw, which would be a pretty nice upgrade over using a handsaw and just tying it to a broomstick. During the actual hunting season, I'll just bring a light pair of pruning shears and use them only when I absolutely need to. The reason I like cutting my shooting lanes early in the year is because the deer have all summer to get accustomed to what the cover looks like. If you cut lanes during the season, especially if you're hunting close to bedding cover, in my opinion, the deer are more likely to notice that drastic difference from one day to the next, and it might make them just nervous enough to look up into the tree and bust you. Now the second part of the equation is knowing exactly what to cut and how much to cut, how much to leave, and that's a little bit tougher of a decision, and it kind of depends on the situation. So what I like to do as I'm standing at the base of the tree is I like to look up into it and visualize where I'm going to place my stand. Visualize myself sitting in it, standing in it, look around at the deer trails, see how much back cover I have, see how much front cover I have, and try and figure out everything I can before I actually climb the tree. And then I'll make any obvious cuts from the ground with that extendable saw. Then I'll actually hang the stand, climb up into it. Again, try drawing back and looking at all my shooting lanes and making any minor adjustments from there. If you're tempted to cut off a bigger limb close to the tree, but it's got a bunch of front cover on it, instead of just cutting that branch off and losing all that cover, just try and see if there's a way if you can rearrange your stand to take advantage of that cover and not have to cut the limb off. That's about all I got for you. Pretty simple concept. Just wanted to pass along a couple quick tips. I got a gear review on these Huyman saws that should be coming out pretty soon, so keep an eye out for it.